Hey guys, Jay Beetle here, and I'm going to show you how to randomize props for a prop hunt map. Now, with this room, you'll notice that there's a button that's just randomly activated, or it's not randomly activated, but it randomly activates a prop out of the 5 choices. Now, I chose a button instead of what you would normally use, which is a logic relay, because you can't really tell that the logic relay is being used, especially if you don't have a prop hunt map. It won't really do anything. But normally, with a prop hunt map, you'll want to use a logic relay because that's essentially saying at the beginning of the round it targets one of these props and activates it, so it'll have more. But this is easier to see, so just pretend this button is a logic relay. So to start out with, to make these randomized props, you will want a math counter and a logic case. For the logic case, we'll just name it logic random and type in 0 through 4. The value in this case doesn't necessarily need to be 0. It doesn't need to start at 0. That's just what I chose. It's probably actually not the best. But just 0 through 4 or 1 through 5, we'll only be using 1 through 5 cases because we only have 5 different props to use. You can use more than that if you want. This is just to prove a point. So next we'll have the math counter. I named it the same as the entity, and start on an initial value of 1 and a maximum legal value of 5. Now, I believe that since I didn't start it at 0 and ended at 4, it will probably have a chance of not doing anything, which is fine. But if you want to edit it to be a little bit more correct, then you might want to change it to 0 and then 4, which is still 5 numbers. Next, we'll look at the math counter output because it's simple. Just change the output to onGetValue, target the logic random, which is the name of the logic case, in case you were wondering, and then pick a random number out of these, well, it will be out of these 5 numbers, 0 through 4. So after you have that, you'll want to go ahead and create the props for it that you're wanting to use. You can choose pretty much any world model, whatever you want to use. If you want a guy running around as a cow, you probably don't want to use random props that you can't even have a chance of being as a blue team. So if you didn't put cow in the list of available props you can become, then that's probably going to be worthless. But anyway, 5 random props. You won't be able to see them because they're small, but there's a beer bottle and a frog character down there in between, in the middle of it all, and then you just name them prop 0, 1 through 5. So this one's 0, 1, this one's 0, 5, this one's 0, 2, and so on. So you have 5 props here, all with names, and that's all you need to do for those. Next, you will want to, I believe, make a func button. This red, I just gave it a red texture. You don't need to change anything in here. You don't even need to give it a name. But the outputs, you want to say when it's damaged, on damaged, you target that math counter. Make sure you gave the math counter a name, and I just gave it the same name as the entity, and then get value. That'll say whenever this is damaged, look at this math counter, see what value it is. So then after that, you've already done this. It gets the value, so it's saying onGetValue, which means when the button's pressed, it'll pick a random number. Now to display the number, to know which number it picked, it'll pick one of these random ones, and that's when the logic case comes in. So that's when it gets a little bit complicated, I would say, more tedious than anything. It's not difficult. So on the first case, you'll want to, I already kind of filled these out. There's a case for every prop. There should be one. That has to be the case. If you had 10 cases or 10 props, you would want 10 cases, but I only have 5, so that's fine. So in the first case, you want to target the props that you're not using that won't be visible and turn them off, and target the one that is visible and turn it on. But you'll also want to do the same thing for the collision of each prop. So I don't know why these aren't in order right now. I guess I created them weird. But you'll turn on the collision of 1 and then turn all the collisions off of 2, 3, 4, 5. And the reason you do that is because if you turn these off but didn't turn off the collision, the collision would still be present even if you couldn't see them. So you'd run into invisible things and it wouldn't be good. You'd be floating in the air if you jumped on top of it. So that's why you have to do it. So going back to the logic case, you go to the output section and just do the same thing for all the others. So what I would normally do is copy, I would copy all 0, 1, or all of case 1s, just make a copy and change it to case 2. Now I'm not going to do that here because I already did. But then you would get a copy of all these. You would want to turn on the collision for prop 2 because that's the one you want visible, and turn on the actual prop for prop 2, and then turn everything off. So disable the collision on 3, 4, 5, and 1, and turn off 3, 4, 5, and 1. Once you have that, you just keep going through the list for however many props you have until you get to 5, or if you have more, continue on. And that's as simple as it is. So if you remember, it would just pick a random one and it would display it. But that's not really going to fool any pyro that's going to be looking for you. If only one prop is different, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So if you want to mix it up, I'll load this other version of the same map. Oops, that is the wrong one. That's the same one we just did. So here is the same exact map, but I spread out more entities and named them differently. So it's really not any more difficult. As a matter of fact, once you have the logic case and the math counter set up, it doesn't get any more difficult. So all that changes is the name of the prop dynamic. So you'll notice, as long as these all have the same name, prop 3, as you can see right around here in the object properties, that means all of these will be displayed and the collision will be enabled with these, and all of the others will be disabled. Same with these. So all these barrels have the same name, and these frogs that are both consenting adult frogs, they will both appear. They both have prop 4. And same with the barrel, but they don't have to be the same prop. So these are all mining crates. This is a ladder, but you'll notice it has the same name, prop 2, as these. So when you see it in game, when you hit this button, you'll see that it produces the props in a different place. Now if you wanted them all to line up, you would have to just, so it wouldn't get too confusing, you'd probably have to use viz groups over here, and you would just highlight or control click the ones you wanted and make a new viz group for each one. So if they're all on top, say I wanted all of these, I wanted either barrels or crates to be there. See, that doesn't look too great. So you want to use viz groups for that. And viz groups is another thing entirely. You want to look it up, but it's really not difficult. That's pretty much it. There are more extensive ways to do this. You can cut maps up into quarters, as has been presented on the Prop Hunt forums, but it's not really necessary. You can. Just to point this out for the last part, this button is probably not the best idea. You would think that if you want to use a prop for one, the props that are hiding would want to use a button. They would want to use +use instead of damage, because they can't damage, as far as I'm aware. They can't shoot their guns. They can just pretend to be props and run away. But if they have +use enabled on the server, they can use this button and it would change it. But thinking about that a little bit more, you probably wouldn't want that to happen, because say someone's pressing this button and you have another prop that's just hiding here inside of these, but it's not visible right now, and it comes across it, you'll be stuck in there, and more than likely it will mean that the props won't be able to be killed because they're inside a prop that you can't destroy. So if you want to do that, you probably want to section off the area while it's being changed, like maybe with a func wall toggle, something like that, so it knows that while this is changing, it needs to be solid so another player can't get in it. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'll try to do a more extensive version to show you what I mean, if I can handle it. Thank you very much for watching.